That's right. It is time for Philadelphia Flyers preseason hockey game number 2 as the Flyers are in New York tonight to take on the New York Islanders. Jason Martinez, Brian Smith, as we get you ready for this game tonight. Brian, the lineup tonight, far different than the other night, although there are a couple guys that have played the other night. But, road games in the preseason tend to be lesser lineups than home teams in the preseason.
Yes, that's because the non-lesser players don't want to travel to a place like Long Island on a bus.
Who doesn't want to go to Long Island?
Me?
Yep.
No, it's it's just a typical thing. In fact, I think the league had to put in a rule that you had to play a certain number of guys with a certain number of NHL games, and I tell you what, this Flyers lineup tonight is scraping the base of that rule if it still exists. But it's a good opportunity for some of these guys to get a good look and play a lot of minutes. If I'm not mistaken, Ronnie Attard is the NHL veteran tonight in the defense lineup, with the exception of maybe Victor Mete. So it's definitely a young lineup, and some guys are going to get a lot of minutes tonight.
Yeah, Ronnie Attard is a guy that's looking to make an impression. Let's talk about him real quick, Brian, because he's played a few NHL games. He made his debut last year, and he's a guy that big shot, has to be able to defend. But when he played with the Phantoms, really paired with Adam Ginning quite a bit. I don't know if they'll be together tonight, but that familiarity could help him. Being able to play with a guy when you're trying to make an impression. Both those guys trying to make an impression and play together because they know each other's tendencies.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, did they not play together in the rookie game? I think so.
I believe they did.
So they definitely would take advantage of that if they're paired tonight. I'm not too sure why they wouldn't be at this point. But the nice thing about this lineup is you've got some guys in here that are not afraid to mix things up, especially in the preseason. And one of them in particular, Louis Belpedio, is a guy that's trying to make an impression by doing so. Garnet Hathaway doesn't need to go out there and stir things up to make an impression. He is, he is who he is. Nick Delorier is the same way, but they're both in the lineup tonight too. So I think you might see some sparks because those three guys. Belpedio was hitting everything that moved in the scrimmages over the weekend, and Hathaway and Delorier were a couple of the guys who were really getting into it with their own teammates over the course of the weekend. So hopefully this game from the Flyers perspective might have a little bit of zip to it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was talking about this today at the training center, watching practice and the skate for the guys that are playing tonight. The slow start the other night, getting down in that game early, bench can really sag, obviously. But it's a preseason game. We don't worry about the result. But I think the way to remedy that tonight is to start the Ryan Poehling, Nick Delorier, Garnet Hathaway line. If I'm a betting man, I have no inside information. I would say that line probably takes the opening face-off tonight.
That would be the Flyers' way of introducing the NHL to this new fourth line in Philadelphia. That's going to be a fun line to watch this year, and I think that's kind of flown under the radar so far in the preseason, just in terms of that group more or less likely going to be together on that fourth line this season. I just refreshed the roster, and you know what? You're right.
Yeah,
starters are in there, so that's what's going to start tonight. Right now they have Belpedio and Ginning together to start the game. We'll see how that goes, but
okay.
It's certainly a line I think that is going to draw. I think it's going to start to draw some attention in Philadelphia after not too long.
Yeah, no question about that. One of the guys I think that's got a real opportunity tonight, Brian, is Samu Tuomala, because he's playing with two NHL guys. He's playing with Noah Cates, so you got defensive responsibility on the ice at the center position. You're also going to have defensive responsibility on the other wing with Scott Lawton. So Tuomala's got a real opportunity tonight, I think, that he's got to take advantage of, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely he does. And it's one thing to get a look in, whatever you want to call them, whether it's development camps or rookie scrimmages or whatever. It's one thing to get into those games and make a showing. But, with these young players, especially the ones that are projected to be, hopefully top 6 forwards, top 9 forwards, when they get the NHL, you got to put them with other good players to see how they play. There's a limitation in hockey as far as somebody like Tuamala, for instance, playing on a line with a couple of guys that aren't projected to make the NHL. And this is the same sort of concept as to why when the Flyers were developing a player like Morgan Frost, he can't play on the fourth line and develop. That's not where the Flyers want to use him. He's got to play top 6, top 9 type pairings in order to develop, or, this is 2 years ago, but, he would need to be back in the American Hockey League where he is playing on the top 2 lines. So the opportunity that Tuamala's got here to go in there with a couple of established NHL players and like you said, defensively responsible, to let him go do whatever he wants. That'll be a very interesting thing to watch tonight.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One of the other things, one of the guys that played the other night, 2 of them actually, Emil Andre back in the lineup, and also Felix Sandstrom. He'll get the start tonight. From what I understand, I think what Ian LaPerriere said today, he'll get a period, and then Sam Ersson will get the final 2. So we'll see how Felix. I thought he played well the other night. The only goal he gives up is that breakaway goal. In an unsettled situation, he came in and looked settled, so that's good. And then the other thing we know about Sam Ersson is he's one cool customer. He always looks settled.
Right, absolutely. I mean, he's and the situation with the Flyers goaltending is such that they're going to have to really kind of make a decision here on what they do in terms of sending somebody to the Phantoms between these 2 players. With your assumption that Cal Peterson will be one of them, that leaves it between these 2 guys. And we've talked about this, that Felix Sandstrom is not waiver exempt anymore, so you have to clear to get through. So but really the Flyers are at the point, I think, where if Ersson is as good as he was last year, that they it'd be hard pressed for them to send him down unless they want to make sure he gets a lot of minutes. So it is an interesting situation the Flyers are dealing with. It's a good problem to have. They have actually a wealth at goaltending right now, but it's gonna these guys are really kind of squaring off, and they've had good camps so far. So tonight will be a big step in making that decision.
I think one of the things we saw in the game against the Devils, the opener, were some sluggish legs, some heavy legs from the first 5 days of camp, which obviously were very tough with the skate to open it up, and then a lot of scrimmaging as well and competing. And I think we saw some tired legs out there. Team had a day off yesterday, so a chance to, now you're in camp, you're starting to get into the rhythm of it. Yesterday you can relax physically, mentally, recharge. So you're hoping that pays a little bit of dividends tonight against this Islanders team, who's got a couple of their veterans in. Matt Martin's in, Barzell's in, Cizikas. They've got some guys in the lineup tonight, and I think Sorokin's getting the start, if I recall.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other trend too, is that when you're playing at home, you're going to play your NHL players. You're trying to entertain your home crowd. So I think Lappy really hit it best today when he said that when this sort of situation happens, you've got a guy like Denver Barkey, who played the other night. He gets to go in there and take a face-off against Nico Hischier. Like, holy crap, how about that? What kind of that gives you the sort of thing we've talked about. It gives you a mental idea of what it's like to play against an NHL player, and that can do nothing but help your development down the road, knowing what that's like. So the fact that these guys get to go up against an NHL roster, in my opinion, is a good thing. These games don't count. You don't get 2 points for these games. So I think it's good that these guys all get to go up against some NHL players and see what that situation's like.
Yeah, to know where they want to get to have some firsthand knowledge, even though it's not regular season, but still know the detail that's in NHL players' games and take that with them back to junior, back to wherever they're being sent to. Denver Barkey sent back to the London Knights just the other day, along with Oliver Bonk as well. One was loaned, one was sent. Yeah, one's under contract, one's not. All right, stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk, they've got all the game action and the countdown to face-off right after this. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day, brought to you by the Flyers Broadcast Network. I forgot. I don't know if it's brought to you by anybody anymore. Is it brought to you by anybody, Smitty?